I was fastening the last hook on a navy satin gown when my husband's phone lit up with a name I wasn't supposed to see, Victoria Hale, CFO, Boston royalty in a graphite pantsuit and a smile you never quite believed. The preview of the message scrolled itself like a subtitle across the lock screen, confirming the moment. After your toast, I kneel, then the line about trading up. Cameras ready. For a second I thought I'd misread it. Then the next bubbles stacked themselves with surgical calm, the way bad news always does. Her reaction is the pivot, Leon. If she cries, we're golden. Legal can cite instability for the board's emergency vote. Your executive elevation happens tonight. I didn't gasp. I didn't throw anything. I just held the phone until the skin of my palm warmed the glass and the room steadied into painful focus. I'd spent a week hunting down a vintage Cartier lighter Leon once pointed at in a magazine, an anniversary surprise for a man who had apparently become a performance. The lighter sat on our dresser like an extra on the wrong set. Where are my cufflinks? Leon's voice drifted from the bathroom, casual, humming, the sound of a person who trusts his own reflection. In your top drawer, I said, sliding his phone back exactly where he'd left it, face down, guilty side hidden. Truth, I co-founded Latticewell, our data platform, with my patents and my grandmother's seed money. Truth, I hold 64%. Truth, every month for the past 9, I've watched Leon get a little brighter under someone else's light. It wasn't sudden, just a slow adjustment of spotlight until I looked up one day and realized I was standing in the dark. Our Back Bay condo, glass, chrome, curated books open to interesting pages, had always felt slightly rented from a richer couple. Tonight it felt staged. A rented world for a borrowed narrative. He emerged in the mirror behind me, straightening a tie I bought, smiling at a woman he didn't think could read a lock screen reflection. You look incredible, Maya. You too, I said, which was true. Success looked good on him. It looks good on thieves, too. The car smelled like leather and brand new promises. Leon chatted about the donor list and the silent auction lots like a tour guide. I watched the city slide by, fairy lights braided across the harbor, a moon hung too low, while my phone pulsed with messages from Zoe, my lead engineer. We need your eyes on the anomaly. Something's off in the shard rebalancing. Call? Another from our controller. Curious, Victoria's team requested access to Operations Wallets for sponsor reimbursements. I declined, flagging. There it was, the outline of a trap traced faintly in fluorescent pen. Leon gestured through some story about a podcast he'd been on. I nodded, filed a smile, and scrolled the one thing that mattered, a PDF on my phone. Articles of Incorporation, Amendment 3. Drafted by me, signed by both of us 2 years ago when we raised our Series B, voting provisions, IP carve-outs, contingency controls. People remember the press release, not the footnotes. I've always lived in the footnotes. At the hotel, the lobby was a chandelier showroom dressed as generosity. Everything gleamed, marble floors, men in tuxedos, women with the kind of posture that comes from Pilates and inherited money. A PR intern clipped a mic to Leon's lapel and aimed him toward a wall of cameras. I felt the small, old ache of being introduced as Leon's wife, even though 3 of those cameras had used my quotes last year and called them his. Victoria's here, Leon said, and I watched his eyes do the smallest, ugliest thing, seek, find, brighten. She found us first. Sharp perfume, sharper smile. Maya, finally, she said. We need your magic on the donor wall. The tone said helpful, the eyes said stay busy, stay away. I'll be around, I told her, and she gave me a look like she'd just moved a chess piece. Dinner shimmered the way expensive dinners do, precariously. Every place card was a plan. The wine was meant to loosen, the toasts to bind. The stage backdrop spelled impact in a font that charged by the letter. Leon placed a steady hand at the small of my back at least 3 times for the photographers. He's good at gestures. He's built a life on them. I excused myself before dessert and slipped into a hallway with less perfume and better Wi-Fi. Zoe called on the second ring. I could hear the hum of servers through the wall like a far-off ocean. The shard issue's not an accident, she said without warm-up. New keys got minted this afternoon from a temp credential. They almost pushed a permissions change to the ops wallet. I rolled it back. How close? 30 minutes, maybe. Look, do you want me to escalate? Already am, I said, quietly. I ended the call and opened a secure app I'd built in Peru at my grandmother's kitchen table on a laptop that burned my thighs. It doesn't look like much, no animation, no clever onboarding, but it does exactly what it's supposed to, which is move authority back to the person who earned it. I initiated protocol or ION. In human words, nothing fancy moves without my thumbprint and a 3-word phrase I've never said out loud. When I got back, dessert plates glistened with sugar graffiti. The MC tapped a fork, the room's volume turned obediently down, and Leon rose for his toast. He's a beautiful talker. He always has been. He spoke about community and grit and the power of small beginnings. He thanked his brilliant wife without looking at me. People clapped. Cameras blinked. Then Victoria stood, uninvited, a microphone finding her as if it had always been in her hand. The first rows murmured with recognition, the back rows rose on tiptoe. She crossed the stage in a measured glide and, somewhere between choreography and cruelty, lowered herself onto one knee. I heard forks stop. I heard someone inhale wrong. I heard my own heart do that drop you learn to disguise. Leon, she said, smiling the smile that sells mergers and burns bridges. Leave the limitations holding you back, and build something real with me. Not poor. Not impotent. Not the words from the text. She'd sanded the line for donors. But I watched her eyes and knew exactly what she meant. The room held its breath. Leon did the thing 100 men do in stories they'll later call complicated. He hesitated just long enough to be plausible, then aimed his future at applause. Yes, he said. Clean. Clear. Phones rose like a flock of glass birds. A woman at my table whispered, "Oh my God, the way people do when they love a spectacle that isn't theirs." I reached for my clutch, not to flee, but to pick up the small, heavy piece of fire, the old Cartier lighter. My grandmother used to click one just like it before she signed anything that mattered. Superstition? Maybe. Ritual? Definitely. I didn't cry. The story needed me to cry. I smiled faintly, stood, and walked out with the soft dignity of someone who has already read the last page. In the vestibule, beneath a chandelier that looked like a falling galaxy, I texted 2 people, Zoe, Orion Active. Sit tight, and our controller, from this moment, all ops wallets require my biometric and phrase approval. No exceptions. Then, only then, I opened the app again and watched as a quiet map of access lit up and then went still, like a city at curfew. Behind me, the ballroom roared. Ahead of me, an elevator opened as if it had always been waiting for me. I stepped in, pressed PH, and listened to the door swallow the music. The elevator ride home lasted 42 seconds, long enough to decide I would not spend a single one of them begging men for my own keys. Inside the penthouse, I kicked off my heels, opened my laptop, and unzipped the folder no one but me knew existed, Oxide. It wasn't a kill switch. Kill switches are theatrical. Oxide was practical. 5 scripts and 3 letters I'd written on a winter Sunday when Leon asked if we could simplify governance optics. I remember nodding and thinking, optics are for people without receipts. I ran Oxide 1, to signature. It pushed new signatory instructions to our banks and payment processors with the original resolutions attached. 2-factor to my phone. Thumbprint. Phrase. Roasted oranges. My grandmother used to candy peels on Sundays. The smell is how safety feels. The bank portal refreshed. Authorized signers, Maya Delgado, primary. Removed, L. Tran, V. Hale. A window popped. Are you sure you want to revoke Leon Tran? I looked at the question until it turned honest and clicked yes. Then Oxide 2, quiet rooms. IT saw a routine compliance sweep. In reality, it was a litigation hold plus a credential freeze on 12 users, Leon, Victoria, her chief of staff, 2 assistants, and the temporary contractor with the minted keys Zoe flagged. Laptops began imaging ghost copies to a vault in a data center in Somerville. Slack channels went read-only. Email journaling activated. No fireworks, just quiet doors locking in a long hallway. My phone lit up immediately. Zoe, seeing badge pings failing at HQ. Did you? Me? Yes. Keep engineering steady. Tell them it's a drill. Another call, an unknown number. I let it ring, watched it go to voicemail, listened. Ms. Delgado, this is Mike Mercer with State Street Commercial. We're getting contradictory signer updates. Please call. Contradictory meant Victoria was already pushing her version. I dialed the direct line on file from 3 years ago, the one bankers actually pick up. Mercer. Hi Mike. Maya. Check the resolutions with the embedded hashes. You'll see the originals from our Amendment 3, the ones you notarized. Keys clacked. Silence. A breath. Got them. They match. Ms. Delgado, there's also a large outgoing wire queued tonight. From Ops. Sponsor reimbursements. 7 figures. Reject. Flag for fraud. Mark for manual review. Send me the generated incident number. Doing it now. A new text arrived before the incident number. Victoria. You overplayed. Reconsider. We both know you don't want donor spooked. I didn't answer. I opened Oxide 3, notice. It compiled a written consent of majority stockholder under Delaware Section 228, something I'd drafted on a plane to Austin and never thought I'd send. The language is merciless because the truth is, governance is prose that courts respect. Suspension for cause of CFO Victoria Hale pending independent audit. Immediate removal of Leon Tran from all financial and operational authority until the board convenes. Appointment of interim COO, me. I e-signed, time-stamped, and pushed it to DocuSign for board circulation. Then I texted a courier, pick up PH, deliver to each director. Tonight. I poured water into a glass and finally looked at the Cartier lighter on the counter. I clicked it once, just to hear that old mechanical promise. Then the front camera on my laptop flashed with an alert, unknown login attempted, Victoria H. I rang security at HQ, a man named Dalton who once walked me to my car when a competitor's recruiter got pushy. Dalton, badges for Leon and Victoria are suspended. If they arrive, they wait in the lobby. No exceptions. Record everything. I'll send legal language in 2 minutes. On it, Ms. Delgado. 2 minutes later Dalton texted a photo from the atrium glass, Leon and Victoria, side by side, dressed for celebration, each holding a phone like it was a spine. He looked deflated but furious. She looked like a person learning physics on the fly. Force, resistance, consequence. My phone rang. Leon. Open the door, he said, voice sandpapered. You can't do this. Donors. Press. You're lighting us on fire. Funny, I said. I was thinking how cold it suddenly felt. You're destroying. I'm preserving. By freezing accounts? Rejecting wires? You embarrassed me in that room. You embarrassed yourself on that stage, I said, and hung up because some calls don't deserve a second sentence. The board's first replies hit my inbox in a staggered rhythm. Received, reviewing, what happened, can you join a call? I typed a single response to all, emergency call at 7 a.m. packet attached. Do not forward. The packet contained screenshots of the temp credential, the wire attempts, a graph of Leon's personal charges marked NON business by our controller, hotel spa line items highlighted in lemon yellow. It ended with a memo titled Fiduciary Exposure, Preliminary, co-signed by outside counsel I'd quietly retained last quarter when Victoria began asking for informal access to ops wallets. Another call, PR. Victoria's people are seeding a story to Tech Ledger about a romantic transition, my head of comms said, voice tight. They want the first version to stick. Draft the truth, I said. No adjectives. Latticewell has initiated a governance review and temporary credential restrictions. Operations continue. Founder and majority owner, M. Delgado, will serve as interim COO. I paused. And refund every donor from tonight. Every dollar. Push the receipts publicly. No one can say we held charity money hostage. The comms lead exhaled like a person who'd been dunked and pulled up. Copy. When the courier left, I opened my grandmother's letter, creased from too much reading, and placed it beside the laptop. Build something that stands when the lights fail. The ballroom was all lights. This was the standing. The intercom buzzed. Concierge. Ms. Delgado? 2, guests insist on coming up. They say they live here. They don't, I said. Not tonight. I sent the cause notice to Victoria's personal email and her counsel. The read receipt came fast. 2 minutes later, my phone lit with an unknown number, Los Angeles area code. Ms. Delgado, Claire Rutherford, counsel for Ms. Hale. We view your notice as retaliatory and defective. Consider this a litigation hold on all. Already in place, I said. From the moment your client attempted to move restricted funds with a temp credential, check your voicemail for the fraud incident number. A beat. We'll be in touch. You'll be in court, I said softly, and ended the call. At 12:13 a.m. Tech Ledger published anyway, a giddy, gossipy piece with 3 anonymous sources and a photo of Leon and Victoria under a headline that used the word power couple. 5 minutes later, our statement went live, dry as a spreadsheet. 10 after that, the refund receipts began to land in donors' inboxes with a note, we appreciate your support. Tonight was for spectacle, tomorrow is for impact. Anonymous sources are loud, ACH notices are louder. Zoe pinged me a screenshot, employees on Slack posting a single emoji in #general, IceCube. Not for me. For the system cooling down a reckless fire. At 1:02 a.m. an email from the audit chair, appreciate the clarity. Support 7 a.m. meeting. I've notified counsel. At 1:19, Mercer again, incident filed. Wire rejected. We've put a manual block on similar descriptors for 72 hours. At 1:31, Dalton sent a final photo, Leon outside the building, head in his hands, Victoria pacing, phone to ear, the city reflected in the atrium glass like a cautionary tale. I shut my laptop, set the Cartier lighter on top of it like a paperweight, and finally let myself sit. The condo felt like an airport at 3 a.m., fluorescent, cleaned, temporarily honest. Across the room, the wedding photo leaned slightly crooked, as if bracing against a draft. I didn't straighten it. Some truths don't need tidying. Dawn would bring the board, the lawyers, the affidavits, the names of the people who'd say they never knew. It would bring numbers and consequences and the quiet satisfaction of putting facts on the table and letting them do what facts do when no one is allowed to shush them. For now, I listened to the heater knock softly in the wall and thought of candied orange peels glistening on my grandmother's cooling rack. At 6:02 a.m., the air outside my building pressed cold and perfect against my face, the kind of city morning that makes glass look more honest. I walked 2 blocks to a coffee shop that opens for bakers and nurses and anyone else who lives by different clocks. The pastry case was lit like a stage. I chose the corner table where you can see both the door and the reflection in the window. Habit, not paranoia. I texted a location pin and a single word to Victoria, now. Her red receipt flashed almost instantly. 10 minutes later, the door chimed and she stepped in wearing the same graphite suit from last night over a white t-shirt, hair in a clean knot. No entourage. No cameras. Her eyes did a quick lap of the room and settled on me with something between curiosity and contempt. You enjoy making lists, she said, sliding into the seat. Let me make one for you. First, donors hate chaos. Second, boards hate headlines. Third, you've made both. I pushed a coffee across to her, black, no lid. Fourth, check your voicemail. The fraud incident number you slept on. Her jaw flexed once. We'll litigate that. You'll try. She wrapped her hands around the cup but didn't drink. There's a statement coming from Tech Ledger at 9. Corrections. We'll soften the language, call it a misunderstanding. I pulled a small envelope from my tote and set it on the table. There's a better word than misunderstanding. It's cause. Read. She didn't touch it. You want a private deal. That's why we're here. You want me to walk away so you can declaw your own explosion. I don't declaw anything, I said. I document it. I tapped the envelope. The suspension stands. The independent audit is locked. You can choose how loudly you fall. The barista called out a cappuccino for someone else. Foam hissed. In the window, the street began to brighten one brick at a time. Victoria finally opened the envelope and scanned. She's fast, law school fast, banker fast. Her eyes stopped at paragraph 3 and narrowed. You can't chair your own audit. I don't. Our audit chair does. I just triggered it. Majority consent attached. Hashes notarized. I sipped my coffee. We can do this like grown-ups. You step aside pending findings. My team keeps the company solvent. Donors refunded. Employees paid. We return to facts. Facts? She almost smiled. Here are facts. 2 directors owe me favors. Leon is the story the press wants. You're a competent founder who wants control back because you can't stand that he outshines you. Everybody knows that shape. I slid a second document across the table. A chart printed on heavy paper, ink dense. This shape? 12 months of sponsor reimbursements routed to shell vendors with shared EINs. Same bookkeeper. Same PO box. Your fingerprints and metadata on 2 approval PDFs. You used a temp credential to test a larger move last night. I tilted my head. Hard to shine under an audit light. Her mouth tightened in a way that wasn't fear, not yet. Calculation. You think you can paint me as greedy and keep the company? You'll look vindictive. Emotional. Careful, I murmured. Sexist framing doesn't test well with prosecutors. She laughed once. Prosecutors? You'll file civil. You don't have the stomach for criminal. I leaned forward so she could see exactly how awake I was. I will do what protects my people and keeps the truth intact. If that means handing this to the AG, I'll wear flats to sprint it over. We let the sentence sit. Traffic started its first tentative conversations outside. Inside, a baker slid another tray of croissants into the oven. The smell made the whole room feel almost merciful. Victoria placed the papers in a neat stack and tapped them with one immaculately manicured finger. You're smart. I respect that. You also underestimate me, which is adorable. She lowered her voice. You don't want this fight. I will make your life a daily press release. Temperamental founder blocks growth. Unstable leadership triggers refund panic. You'll spend 18 months explaining yourself. My turn to almost smile. I took out my phone and played a 30-second clip at low volume. Her voice, last night, outside HQ, into her phone. Dalton's lobby camera caught it clean. Push it now. Before she locks it. Use the contractor credential. If she screams, we call it an accounting check. The audio wasn't cinematic. It was better. It was ordinary. She didn't flinch. She blinked, once. You record people. I secure property, I said. Every headquarters lobby records everyone. You taught me that when you installed the glass. That won't be admissible. It will be persuasive. Something changed then, not defeat, not even retreat. A tiny recalibration, like she'd been holding a weight just out of frame and decided to set it down. What do you want, specifically? She asked, finally drinking the coffee. Specifics? Great. I counted on my fingers. 1. Written resignation effective at the board meeting, citing personal reasons. 2. Cooperation with the audit. Full access to your communications and the shell vendors. 3. A corrective statement by 9 a.m. that withdraws last night's narrative. No romance. No transition. Just regretted mischaracterizations. 4. You name me as founder and majority owner in that statement. No adjectives. 5. You never contact my employees again without counsel. I paused. In return, I don't refer the packet to criminal. Yet. And Leon? She asked, casual like a match flicked. Not your problem anymore, I said. He'll sign his own papers. Or he won't. Either way, he doesn't hold a single key. Victoria looked past me, into the window's reflection, and for a second I saw what made people follow her. A steel brightness that believes in outcomes more than methods. You think I'm stupid? She sipped. I'm not. I'm hungry. There's a difference. I know, I said. That's why you and Leon worked. He needed to be admired. You needed access. You mistook access for ownership. You mistake ownership for permanence, she said quietly. Markets move. Governance doesn't. We sat with that. Two women with power, the table between us a patient mediator. She set the cup down. If I sign, you still run the narrative. I run the company, I said. Narratives die faster than payrolls. Her phone buzzed against the tabletop. She glanced, a text preview from a number with a firm's name under it. I caught one word, injunction. You call your lawyers before coffee? I asked. They don't sleep, she said. Like you. The door chimed again. The sunrise finally caught the chrome of the espresso machine and bounced it into our faces. She blinked into the light as if the room had changed sides. Draft the resignation, she said. Send it to Claire. If the audit stays independent, if you keep it professional, I'll sign. I will not be your villain in public. You already are in private, I said, but I nodded. Keep it clean and I won't feed you to headlines. I prefer numbers. We stood. She tucked the documents back into the envelope with hands that didn't shake. At the door, she turned back. Leon will spin, she said. He'll cry on carpets. He'll tell you it was all a test. He'll show up with flowers and the empty courage of a man who loves applause more than people. I know, I said. He will also blame me for everything. She tilted her head. Take that gift. I don't need gifts, I said. I have math. She left without ceremony. I finished my coffee, looking at the seat she'd warmed, then texted Zoe, bored at 7 stays. Prepare the op stability slide. 2 lines. Keep it boring. On my walk back, the city had shifted to weekday mode, dogs pulled owners, buses hissed, a runner cursed at a crosswalk. I felt more awake than I had in months. Not triumphant. Grounded. The kind of awake that comes when the rules stop being rumors. In the lobby, the concierge handed me a thin legal envelope that had arrived while I was gone. The return address carried the polished confidence of a crisis firm. Inside, a drafted TRO to prevent unilateral changes to corporate control. I smiled to myself. Already filed, how efficient. Upstairs, I set it beside the Cartier lighter, clicked once, and watched the thin blue flame hold steady. At 6:57 a.m. The conference room camera blinked awake and carved all our faces into rectangles. Audit chair Nora with hair still wet, David from strategy nursing a tea like it owed him money, 2 independent directors framed by tasteful bookshelves, our counsel, Priya, neat as a fresh page, Leon and Victoria in a smaller tile at HQ, side by side but not together, and me at the head of the table, with a stack of folders and the Cartier lighter placed deliberately in frame. Recording is on, Nora said. This is a special meeting of Latticewell's board. Agenda, governance actions, injunction, and operation stability. Before she could continue, a new tile appeared, a silver-haired man with courtroom posture and a background that screamed expensive. Good morning. Alan Kessler, counsel for Ms. Hale. We filed a temporary restraining order enjoining Ms. Delgado from unilateral changes to corporate control. Suffolk Superior, docketed at 6:40 a.m. We expect immediate compliance. Priya didn't blink. Good morning, Alan. Latticewell is a Delaware corporation. Your TRO is misfiled. We've already removed to Delaware Chancery and noticed an emergency hearing at 8:30 a.m. Chancellor's clerk confirmed. We'll oppose and seek fees. Alan smiled the way sharks test fences. Your so-called majority consent is defective. I slid Exhibit A under my camera, the written consent of majority stockholder, signed and hash-stamped. Not defective. Controlling, I said. But since we all love the record, I shared my screen. Slide 1, Chain of Authority. Incorporation, Amendment 3, Voting Provisions, IP Assignments. Each doc flashed with the SHA 256 hash and the notary stamp zoomed to legibility. No adjectives. Just dates and signatures. Let's move to the injunction, Nora said. Ms. Delgado, your opposition? Priya took over. We filed an opposition to TRO and cross-motion for status quo, 42 pages, with exhibits. I'll walk you through the 5 that matter. Exhibit 1, Fraud Incident #SS8841. The bank portal screenshot filled the grid, initiated 2207, descriptor, sponsor reimbursements, payee linked to a Shell LLC with a P.O. box in Chelsea. Status, rejected, manual block. Mercer's note scrolled in the corner, conflicting signatories, flagged by embedded resolution hashes. Who initiated? The strategy director asked, already knowing. Credential chain traces to a temp user minted from CFO's domain, Priya said. Which brings us to Exhibit 2. Exhibit 2, Credential Audit. A log with timestamps like a heartbeat. 2154 Temp Contract 742 created by Hale v. 2202 Permission set elevated. 2206 Failed push to Ops wallet. 2207 Wire queued. Red boxes around the IP addresses. Cross-verified with Okta and AWS logs, Priya added. No plausible accidental pathway. Victoria leaned toward her laptop, voice even. This is taken out of context. We were pressure testing a reimbursement pipeline after the gala. We halted it. I clicked to Exhibit 3 before she could lacquer it. Lobby audio. The waveform appeared. Priya played 30 seconds. Victoria's voice, unmistakable. Push it now. Before she locks it. Use the contractor credential. If she screams, we call it an accounting check. The room went very still, even through pixels. Alan broke the quiet. Inadmissible. Privacy. Priya was already shaking her head. Recorded in a lobby with posted signage, audio, video recording in progress. Admissible or not, it's persuasive. Exhibit 4, please. Exhibit 4, Vendor Tree. A simple chart, those are always the deadliest. 12 sponsor vendors, 4 EINs, 1 bookkeeper, same P.O. box. Green arrows showing origin of invoices, blue arrows showing approvals, a red circle around Hale v on 2 PDFs metadata. We subpoenaed email headers last month when irregularities began, Priya said. Chain of custody intact. David from Strategy cleared his throat. And Exhibit 5? I switched to the last slide, Ops Stability, 2 lines, just like I'd promised Zoe. Payroll funded. Refunds to donors executed at 022 with ACH IDs. A footnote, Protocol Orion active, dual-factor/phrase gate on Ops wallets for 72 hours. Employees will be paid Friday, I said. Vendors net 30 with manual review. Charity funds already returned. We're not holding anyone's generosity hostage. Leon's tile unmuted with a click. His tie was gone, his anger wasn't. You're burning down a relationship in public to prove a point. This could have been handled privately, Maya. The last private thing you did, I said, was nod at a woman on one knee and call it a future. You humiliated me, he said, softening theatrically, always his second move. Last night was a test of our marriage. Stop. Nora's voice carried the authority of someone who numbers her patients in basis points. Mr. Tran, this is a board meeting, not a domestic stage. Alan pounced on the procedural opening. All the more reason for status quo. You cannot reassign officers without board approval. Priya smiled like a chess player finally springing a trap. We didn't. We suspended for cause pending audit. Under Section 7(3), the majority stockholder may install an interim officer to ensure continuity, which Ms. Delgado did. Now, to the board's role, ratification. Silence, then the audit chair spoke, her tone like a level placed on a wobbly table. Motion to ratify the majority consent, suspend CFO Hale pending independent audit, restrict Mr. Tran's access to financial and operational systems, appoint Ms. Delgado interim COO, engage independent forensic firm designated by audit. Second, said David. Discussion? Nora asked. Victoria finally let the veneer crack by a millimeter. You'll crater your valuation with this circus. Do you understand that? We were weeks from a follow-on round. I met the camera lens like it was an eye. We don't sell paper cushioned by lies. We build, we ship, and we pay people on time. Markets recover. Credibility doesn't. Vote, Nora said. Hands went up tile by tile, electronic checkmarks chirping in the interface. 4 ayes. 1 abstention. No nays. Motion carried. Alan leaned back, sharpening his next angle. The TRO hearing is in 90 minutes. You'll lose. At best, you'll be ordered to maintain the status quo. We welcome it, Priya said. Our cross-motion asks the court to define status quo as what existed before Ms. Hale's attempted wire and credential abuse, namely, Ms. Delgado's authority under Amendment 3 and the controls you find so inconvenient. I shifted from the board to the public part of the plan. I'm publishing the exhibits with redactions to our investor portal and providing them, under seal, to the court. Donors will receive a plain language summary. Employees will see a memo with exact payroll timing. No adjectives, no vendettas. Absolutely not, Alan snapped. You cannot litigate in public. You started in public, I said softly, with a stage and a proposal that was really a press release. The board adjourned at 7:41 a.m. Minutes recorded, resolutions tucked into a secure folder labeled with today's date. We left the call in clumps. I stayed on with Priya for final logistics. Files ready, she said. Chancery allows electronic exhibits under seal with a public index. You want me to hit send? Do it. I watched the progress bar complete, one of those tiny, unpoetic moments when life actually changes, and felt the condo settle into a deeper quiet. At 8:06 a.m., our investor portal pinged, new document, governance update and exhibits, redacted. The inbox began to fill with acknowledgements instead of rumors. The donor thread populated with paid receipts. In #general, the ice cube emoji gave way to a coffee cup, hot beverage, back to work. Leon texted once more, please. No punctuation. No plan. I let it sit. Then my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar Delaware number. The clerk. Ms. Delgado? The chancellor will see the parties at 8:30. Please log in 5 minutes early. I'll be there, I said, and reached for the Cartier lighter, clicking it once. The flame held steady, a small blue promise. The Delaware feed froze on the chancellor's face mid-sentence and then resumed like nothing had happened, classic video court lag. But the ruling was crisp. The status quo would be preserved as it existed before last night's attempted wire. My majority consent stood. The audit would proceed. Neither Leon nor Victoria would touch a dollar without dual authorization. She also suggested, in a tone that could peel paint, that romantic theatrics are not a governance model. When the session ended, Priya stayed on long enough to smile with just her eyes. That's the ballgame for now. I'll shepherd the audit. Get some air. Air sounded like a thing someone else breathes. I walked a loop around the block anyway and came back to the quiet of the condo, the kind that makes appliances sound too loud. Our porter had left a box at the door, white roses bowing under their own weight, a card tucked into ribbon. I'm outside. Please, L. I set the flowers on the kitchen island, pulled the Cartier lighter from my pocket like a worry stone, and clicked it once. Blue held steady. My phone buzzed, the lobby calling. MS. Delgado, Mr. Tran insists it's personal and brief. Your call. Send him up, I said, because endings also deserve documentation. He entered with the practiced humility of a man who's rehearsed falling on his sword while making sure it's rubber. No suit jacket, shirt sleeves rolled, the tie from last night stuffed in his pocket as if spontaneity were a costume. He stopped at the edge of the living room where we used to take investor calls and looked around like the furniture might vote with him. Maya, he said, voice sanded down to a softness he only used on strangers and me. Congratulations on your win. It's not a game, I said. He exhaled, made a show of not sitting until I gestured. I didn't. He sat anyway, on the edge of the sofa, hands steepled like prayer or strategy. I'm sorry, he began, and I felt the old reflex twitch. How many times had that word been the preface to a pitch? I panicked. Last night was never meant to hurt you. It was. A test? I offered. Therapy? A brand activation? He flinched. A mistake. I let Victoria drive. You know me. I get dazzled by momentum. She said we were stuck. That we needed a new story, a stronger bench. I thought, stupidly, that if I looked decisive, the board would respect you, I finished. Enough to erase me. His mouth worked. You wrote the code. I never said you didn't. But I'm the one in the rooms. I carry the room. That used to matter to you. It still does, I said. Which is why the rooms now have facts in them. He nodded as if conceding, then pivoted, graceful, familiar. What if we reset? You and me. No, Victoria. We announce joint leadership. We call the proposal a PR stunt gone wrong. People love redemption. We can sell that story. You let the audit find nothing. I issue an apology that says the right things but not the things that destroy me. We move forward. There it was, the last lever. Not truth. Narrative. I walked to the dining table and returned with a thin folder, his copy, crisp and unavoidable. The separation agreement. The repayment schedule. The NDA that sealed our shared past into silence. I placed it on the coffee table between us like a mirror. I'm not interested in selling, I said. I keep the company clean. You keep your future smaller and honest. You teach. You consult. You pay back what you charged. We don't lie about the shape of things to make them easier to swallow. He stared at the folder like it might sprout fangs. Then he stood and began to pace the way he does when he's about to try a different angle, movement as misdirection. You're angry, he said. Rightly. But you're also tired. You've been so tired, Maya. Let me carry some of it again. Not like before. Better. We could go away for a week. No phones, no statements. Think. Leon, I said softly, and the use of his name steadied me. You don't carry things. You display them. He stopped pacing. A flush rose under his skin. You think I'm hollow. I think you're loud, I said. And I think loud is often mistaken for full. He swallowed that, eyes shining in the way that had once been my undoing. You want me to be the villain, he whispered, the last, smallest attempt. It makes your story cleaner. I shook my head. I don't need a villain. I need a ledger. He sat again, deflated differently this time, not with fury, but with the particular sadness of a person who has finally lost the room he assumed was his. He put a hand on the folder and pushed it back at me. I can't sign this, he said. It's annihilation. It's accounting, I said. But if you need a new word, call it closure. He stared at the Cartier lighter on the table and smiled a little, like he'd found the angle at last. Remember Lima? Your grandmother's kitchen? You burned the sugar the first time. You swore and cried and then did it again until the peels glossed. You said, perfection is a quiet courage. I loved that about you. I still do. The memory hit a soft place. He saw it and stepped forward, gentle, almost kind. The oldest trick. The only one that had a chance. That woman is in there, he said, tapping the table, as if my chest were under it. Let me. I struck the lighter. The flame rose, a line of clean blue between us. She built this, I said. And she learned to stop cooking for people who eat the story and leave the food. He leaned back, the moment gone. The elevator chimed in the hall. Zoe, right on time for a debrief and probably to make sure I'd eaten something. Leon heard it too. He straightened, smoothed his shirt, and picked up the folder again as if it had become lighter. I'll have my lawyer mark it up, he said, dignity dragged back over his shoulders like a jacket. There's no need to bury me. I'm not burying you, I said. I'm drawing the map for where you go next. He nodded, a tiny bow. At the door, he paused with his hand on the knob. For what it's worth, he said without turning, I did love you. I just loved the applause more. I know, I said. That's why the applause keeps you, and I don't. He left with the quiet of someone who finally understood that the elevator does not reverse for pleading. The door clicked, a sound so small it barely existed, and still it rang like a gavel. Zoe stepped in seconds later, hair in a messy bun, laptop already open, 2 bagels and a paper bag that smelled like pure mercy. How'd it go? She asked, handing me food like medicine. He tried a story, I said. We chose a ledger. She grinned, slid onto the stool, and showed me a dashboard, donor refunds all green, payroll queued, error rates flat. In #general, the emojis had downgraded themselves to a string of sherpit rockets. Not confetti, not fireworks. Work. We ate in the kind of silence friends make on purpose. The morning light found the roses and turned them from apology to decor. I moved them to the far end of the counter, where pretty things go to be forgotten. When Zoe left, I printed the court order and clipped it to the fridge under a magnet my grandmother brought back from a museum gift shop. 2 words printed in cheap ink. Keep building. I clicked the lighter one last time and watched the flame hold, then fold itself away.